Vanakkam. I'm Vayoni Dimel. This is Boston Lanka News, bringing you news, views and entertainment from Boston and USA. Dr. Ananda Guruge shares his memories working with 4 former Prime Ministers of Sri Lanka. Sri Lankans in New York invoke blessings on all who died in Sri Lankan civil war, including misguided LTTE fighters. Former Attorney General Mohan Peiris, clueless about Prageeth Eknaligoda. Only God knows Prageeth's whereabouts, says Peiris. Summer love, biggest and hottest bash of young Sri Lankans in LA. Former ambassador of Sri Lanka to UNESCO, France and the United States, and a renowned Buddhist scholar, Dr. Ananda Guruge, in a very rare interview, shares his memories, working for 4 former Sri Lankan Prime Ministers as a civil servant in Sri Lanka. We are with Dr. Ananda Guruge, a Sri Lankan diplomat, a Buddhist scholar and a writer. He is the former ambassador of Sri Lanka to UNESCO, France and the United States of America. He is the author of more than 50 books in Sinhala and in English. We are very honored to have Dr. Guruge with us today. Dr. Guruge, welcome to Boston.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Since 1952,
Yes.
You've been serving many Sri Lankan Prime Ministers, starting from Dudley Senanayake, John Kothalawala, S.W.R.D. Bandaranayake and Siruma Bandaranayake. That's quite impressive. Could you share briefly your experience and if you have any special memories with these special people?
Each one of them was a remarkable person for whom I have the greatest love and dedication because they wanted to work for the welfare of the country. We may not always understand why they did why they adopted a particular policy at a given time. Government is something that is done according to the emerging needs of the times, so that if you look back on something that they did, you'll say, why did they do it that way? But the fact is that at that time, they were working with the greatest dedication and patriotism that one could expect from a leader. Dudley Senanayake was a remarkable person, a very hard-working person. When you presented a file to him, he never took a hasty decision. He studied. We usually make a recommendation, but he will go through every single paper that you have mentioned and to see whether the conclusion that I derived was what he could approve. Sometimes that was one of the big problems that he had because he became a micromanager. But that again was because he always called himself, I don't want to do things my father's way. My father used to do things on what he thought was intuition, but he studied. So John Kothalawala was a very different type of person, highly motivated by his own concept of what Sri Lanka should look like. He believed that we should have huge roads, which our communication system should be the best in the world. And as Prime Minister, he was trying to do everything that was possible to make Sri Lanka materially better off. And he was a great fighter too. You know, the Indo-Sri Lanka issue at that time, when we had to deal with the population of Indian labor, he went to Delhi. He had very fine negotiations with Nehru, and he got Nehru to agree on something that we thought it would be never possible. He loved to travel, and he saw a lot of place in the world. And he wrote his biography called The Biography of an Asian Prime Minister. And in all these activities I had some hand because I was supposed to be a literary person in my younger days too. So it had been very interesting working with him. The person who came as the leader of opposition, whom I knew very closely as the leader of the opposition, and later as the Prime Minister, was Mr. S.W. Bandaranaike. It was at that time that Buddha Jayanti was being celebrated. That was the 2500th anniversary of the death of the Buddha, which according to our history, the legendary part of Sri Lankan history, coincides with the arrival of Vijaya. So we had it as an occasion of dual significance. And Bandaranaike, it started by Kotalavale himself, but Bandaranaike carried on the program and was a very interesting person because he was an intellectual. And he wanted to do a few things that were extremely important to the country. And what I considered very important of his contribution was that he set up these two universities, which at that stage were called giving the two Pirivinas as research status. But I have a story to tell about that too. We never did that. What we really did was to create two universities under the name of Vidyodaya University of Ceylon and Lanka University of Ceylon. So people were calling them the Pirivana universities, but they were not the Pirivanas. The Pirivanas continued to exist where they were. So Vidyodaya moved on to Gambudavilla, Lanka moved on to Kelaniya, and they became today Dayawadalapura and Kelaniya, two national universities. And Mr. Bandaranaike understood the proposal that I happened to make under inspiration from a very great man of Sri Lanka, namely C.W.W. Kadangara. He was on the advisory committee for Vidyodaya. He told me, Guruge, don't call them raising the Pirivanas to universities, because these universities will then be regarded as second class always. Write your opening clause in the law saying, two new universities are established under the name of this and this. And Bandaranaike agreed. And he too saw the future required that kind of thing. And Mrs. Bandaranaike was one of the most remarkable people to work with. First years were difficult because you had to speak to her through Felix Bandaranaike. To convince her, you had to convince Felix first. But within months, she was able to handle it. Very tough issues, difficult issues, and I have always found it very interesting to go and argue a case with her. And that happened to be a time when I did something very controversial. Her law that she brought in, namely the takeover of assisted schools. The amount of latitude that she gave me enabled me to get one, I could put it this way, Father Basil Disanaika, who was the manager of Catholic schools, who had to take 50 odd schools and make them private, but handed over some 100 schools to me. When he was going to Bangladesh after his period in Sri Lanka, he said, Guruge, without you, the school's takeover would have led to bloodshed. And I give credit to Ms. Bandaranaike because when some very controversial things issued and I said, I like to handle it this way, he said, hey, you like to do it, it's okay. So this is the kind of memories I have of people who were easy to work with. People think that Sir John Kotalavale is one of the most difficult people to work with, but I have some very interesting memories. One day he calls me and says, I'm making a speech in Bandung. The speech that had been given to me by this Foreign Ministry at that time called the Defense and External Affairs. It has nothing about Sri Lankan culture or Buddhism. I want you to put something. So I take the script and in his nice, charming way says, "Will it be all right if you can bring it by in the morning?" Now this is about 4 o'clock in the evening. Okay, they all know me. I said, "Yes, it will be there." And I go at 4 o'clock in the morning. And now I am prepared to read the speech to him with all the additions that I have made. He said, "You must first enjoy the Sinhala New Year. Today is Sinhala New Year." He has laid the table ready to have the usual, the feast that we have in the Sinhala New Year at 4 o'clock with me before starting work. So, you like these people,
We will have the rest of his interview as well as a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation about Buddhism between Dr. Guruge and his son Ananda Guruge in a special Boston Lanka edition. Sri Lankan community in New York, led by Buddhist, Hindu, Christian and Islam religious leaders, participated in an interfaith ceremony at the New York Buddhist Vihara to invoke blessings to all those who sacrificed their precious lives in the unity of Sri Lanka. Marking the 3rd anniversary of liberating Sri Lanka from the 3-decade-long terror grip, this multicultural, multi-religious ceremony was attended by a very large gathering of Sri Lankan expatriates of all ethnic, religious and political backgrounds living in the tri-state area. A unique feature of the event, which was much in line with the Buddhist philosophy of spreading metta even to the enemies, was invoking blessings on the deceased terror cadres too, who are also the children of the Sri Lankan nation, but unfortunately misguided or forcibly recruited. Perhaps this was the first time in the world where a Ranaviru religious event invoked blessings to the deceased terror cadres as well. Dr. Paulitha Kahuna, the ambassador and the permanent representative to the United Nations, and Major General Shavendra Silva, the ambassador and the deputy permanent representative to the United Nations, were among the distinguished gathering. The event was concluded with a candlelight vigil by all attendees, who placed a candle on the special candle racks outside the temple, marking their eternal gratitude for the members of the Sri Lanka security forces who had made the supreme sacrifice to defend Sri Lanka. "I don't know if he is alive or dead. Only God would know if the information that I received about him is true," said former Attorney General Mohan Peiris, giving evidence at the Homagama Magistrates Court about the disappearance of missing journalist Prageeth Eknaligoda. Peiris, addressing a UN conference on disappeared persons few months ago, said that Eknaligoda was alive and was residing out of the country. When the lawyer for the petitioner queried from the former AG as to if he remembers the person or department who gave him the information about Eknaligoda living overseas, Peiris replied, "I don't remember." About few weeks ago, the National Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka has informed Sandhya Eknaligoda, the wife of Prageeth Eknaligoda, that the Human Rights Commission would not be conducting any investigations on former AG's public statement at a UN meeting about the whereabouts of Prageeth Eknaligoda and not to make any more requests to the Commission. According to media reports, Mrs. Eknaligoda accuses the chairman of the Sri Lanka Human Rights Commission of tormenting her and her 2 children by aiding Mohan Peiris in concealing information about her husband. Summer Love, the first annual club event of the Sri Lankan Youth Organization in Los Angeles, will be held at the trendy hotspot in Pasadena, California on June 15th for the Sri Lankan youth in California to meet and network in a fun and friendly atmosphere. The event will include performances by brand new artists performing their latest tracks and top Los Angeles DJs spinning the hottest in hip-hop. SLYO, founded by Aruni Ganevatta, has been growing in members and popularity in the Greater Los Angeles area and has hosted and participated in a variety of events like homeless feedings, the Walk for Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, the Sri Lanka Day Fashion Show, and many other social and networking activities. The money raised from this event will be used for organizations' community service activities as well as to host more networking events for Sri Lankan youth in USA. That concludes our news edition. We meet you again with another news edition of News, Views and Entertainment from Boston and USA. Till then, goodbye.